Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Gennari, and this is Great Big History Podcast. In this extended episode, we do the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom and finish Egypt. When we left off, the Prince of Thebes was uniting Egypt. The Old Kingdom had ended, had just faded away like a fart in the breeze. No one had wanted it gone. Nobody had murdered anybody to destroy it. It just faded away because the pharaoh simply wasn't doing the job, and the noblemen were. The result was 100 years of civil war, and the result of that was the Prince of Thebes used his financial advantage to turn into a military advantage to reunite Egypt and create the Middle Kingdom. Now, the Middle Kingdom will run for 300 years, so it is not as successful as the Old Kingdom. It's successful. 300 years is a long time. It's longer than the United States has been around, but it's not as successful as 1,000 years. Likewise, it doesn't have an army. Remember all those mercenaries? You send them home. If you're not fighting constant wars, you don't want mercenaries. They're expensive. So you pay them off and you say, thank you very much. And they say, great. If you need us, we'll be in Africa doing our, fighting other people. So we'll see you later. Are they going to build pyramids? No. Pyramids didn't work in the end. They worked for 1,000 years. They were big and expensive. But in the end, you don't date your ex. Because all the problems that were there when you broke up are still there. And so the Middle Kingdom's like, we're going to find a new way for legitimacy. One that is not pyramids. And so what they do is infrastructure. They build roads, canals, mines. The idea was economic prosperity. They said to the Egyptians, remember, one of the rules was stability plus prosperity. So we'll help you be richer. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Isn't Egypt already the richest place on earth? Yeah, but everyone likes more money. And so they're going to help you have more money. How? Well, what do farmers want more than anything else? Water. So we're going to build you canals. We'll bring the water to you. As the population expands, people are starting farms farther and farther away from the Nile. They need more and more water. So hell, we'll bring the water to you. Farmers are happy about that. That's great. We're going to do mines. We're going to find mines in the Sinai. We're going to hire miners. Why? Because all the gold, platinum, tin, bronze that comes out of the earth can be used by the government to help build stuff and lower your taxes. Every ounce of gold that's discovered in a mine is an ounce of gold I don't have to collect from you in taxes to pay for stuff. So again, economic prosperity. But that's not enough. Infrastructure is nice, but the problem with it is nobody cares. Khufu's pyramid is 4,000 years old, and you know it's Khufu's. But you guys live in the Philadelphia area. Do you know which political party built the Walt Whitman Bridge in the 1960s? I don't. And do you care? It's probably the Democrats, because the Democrats were in power for the most part from the 30s to the 80s. So it's probably the Democrats, but are any of you voting saying, you people built the Walt Whitman Bridge. You people built 42. I will vote for you. No. You care about what is the government doing for you now. And so infrastructure doesn't get you a good bang for your buck. It's good. Everyone loves infrastructure. Everybody likes buying, and everyone loves the new stuff. But the problem with it is once it's built, once the Walt Whitman Bridge is built, people kind of forget what life was like before the Walt Whitman Bridge was built. And so you need something else. You need something else to prove you're awesome. For people to think, you're awesome. And what the Middle Kingdom does is invest in culture, in stories, in great stories. They're going to hire actors, hire playwrights, hire the circus, and they're going to go to every small dinky town along the Nile. They're going to show up on a Thursday night blaring their music and doing their hula hoops and doing all the acrobatic stuff like it's the beginning of the greatest show on earth. The showman, right? As if Wolverine is going to come out and sing, whoa, boom, boom, right? Why? Because people, what is there to do on a Friday night in ancient Egypt in 1856 BCE? Answer, nothing. Nothing fun. Nothing. There's drinking at the local pub. There's hanging out with your friends. So when the circus comes to town, it is the coolest thing ever. So everybody wants to go. And what they do is they go to the town square, the basic major meeting place. They build a stage. They build a theater. They put the seats out. And every girl wants to go and see this. Every teenage girl wants to go. So since every teenage girl wants to go, every teenage boy wants to take the teenage girl they have a crush on. So boom, you have the teenage girls going. You have the teenage boys going. You have the parents going because you can't allow teenagers to have too much alone time. So the teenagers will sit in the front. The parents will be in the back because they understand teenagers need some alone time. But not too much alone time. Not too much time. And not too much alone. The other thing is, since the parents have to go and the teenagers are already going, the kids have to go. So everybody shows up. This is the coolest thing that will happen during the year. And what happens? Well, the curtain opens. Out comes a gentleman who says, out comes the MC. And he says, tonight we're going to put on a series of plays. These plays are brought to you by a generous donation from the Pharaoh. This stage was built by a generous donation from the Pharaoh. The wood in all of this was brought to you by a generous donation from the Pharaoh. And the actors and the playwrights are all paid for by a very generous donation from the Pharaoh. So you have all of this for free. The only thing that costs you some money is the popcorn. So enjoy, relax, enjoy the next 3 hours as we put on our plays. Thank you. Now, what happens next? Well, what happens next is 3 hours of plays in which the Pharaoh is the main character. Even when the Pharaoh is not the main character, kind of like in Robin Hood, when King Richard shows up, he's the hero at the end. The Pharaoh is awesome. The point of these stories is to show the Pharaoh is awesome. Hey, did you hear the one about the Pharaoh who saved the ducks from a flood? They were swimming down there, and now they're swimming up here. And then the Pharaoh showed up and said, you can swim all you want, wherever you want, and I will help you. And the ducks said, quack, and everybody was happy. Did you hear the one about the Pharaoh who helped the lovers hook up? Their families didn't get along. Their families were keeping them apart, and they were going to run away with each other, but that would have ruined both of their reputations. But then he got kidnapped by pirates, but good thing the Pharaoh found out, and he sent a navy to go destroy the pirates and save the lad. And then the Pharaoh gave his blessing to the lovers and said to the adults, shut up. You're now in-laws. Get along. You're going to be grandparents soon. I said so. Because and of course the hands are on the hips, looking out into the middle distance like Superman with the sun setting right into his orange now face. And he's like, because I am the Pharaoh. And the music goes, dun, dun, dun. And everyone goes, woo. And it's great. Everyone loves it. And the play ends, and everyone's like, whoa, did you know that Pharaoh was so awesome? I didn't know. He helped the lovers. Yeah, and he saved the ducks, and it was awesome. And the little kids are like, I want to be Pharaoh. I want to be Pharaoh. And the little kids are like, no, I'm going to be Pharaoh. When we play, I'm Pharaoh, and you're the bad person. And they're like, no, I'm always a bad person. Mommy, Timmy makes me to be the bad person. It's like, well, come on, Jimmy. You can't make him be the bad person. You can't make your little brother be the bad person every time. Let him be Pharaoh this time. Oh, Ma. And everyone goes home and thinks Pharaoh is awesome. What is the advantage of this? It's cheap. It's cheap. Shakespeare tells us actors are a dime a dozen. They're nothing. Think about how many plays you have acted in for free. Think about how many poems, how many stories, how many plays, how many drawings you do for free. If I look in your notebook, how many doodles am I going to see? Were you paid for any of those doodles? No, you were just bored in my class. And that's fine, but you did those doodles for free. So how much does Pharaoh have to pay you for them? Nothing. You're already doing it. So actors, culture is cheap compared to a pyramid. Compared to feeding 100,000 people, actors are cheap. The disadvantage is, can you control who hears your story and what story they hear? You intend Egyptians to hear stories about the Egyptian pharaoh and how awesome he is. But you live on Facebook, you live on Twitter, you live on Tumblr. You have seen the comment sections of things. You know that what you intend is not always how the audience takes it. For example, I'm going to give you an example. This is not a real example. It's not a historical example, but it's a perfectly reasonable example. Did you hear the story about the pharaoh who gave $1 billion to help orphans? Now, if you're an Egyptian, what part of that story did you hear? Did you hear the $1 billion? No. Why? Now, I know students are always like, oh, I heard the $1 billion. He gave $1 billion. No. Because Pharaoh's rich. Jeff Bezos just announced he's giving $10 billion to help climate change. Who cares? I don't care. Do you care? $10 billion. Oh, that's a lot. It's like 10 cents on the dollar that he owns. It's nothing compared to him. It's not even a hard, it's not even, oh, he's going to have to live on $90 billion. How many countries can he buy for that? I mean, come on. 10 billion. Rich people, the pharaoh already has money. So Egyptians don't hear the money part. They hear the orphans part. And they go, oh, that pharaoh is so nice. He's helping orphans. They hear the orphans part. Because they know Pharaoh better be giving a lot of money. He's got a lot of money. But what if you are the person who's hearing that story in the bar? You're slipping it down, going, cheers. Yeah, friend, tell me an Egyptian story. Oh, I got a good one. The pharaoh just gave $1 billion to help orphans. Isn't that cool? And you're sitting there, and you're a Mesopotamian chariot pirate lord. You're a pirate from Mesopotamia. And you hear that story. Did you hear the orphans? No, you could care less about the orphans. You don't give a shirt about orphans. You make orphans. You heard the $1 billion. Because if Pharaoh gave $1 billion away to stupid old orphans, he's got a lot of billions left. Jeff Bezos gave $10 billion. He still has $90 billion left. Oh, and I'll tell you another story about Pharaoh. Oh, please. Tell more. Bartender, another round for my friend. I love his stories. I'm going to tell you. Hold on. I got to get this. Oh, hold on. Oh, that's good. Pharaoh is so awesome. He doesn't even have an army. He has all that money in like a giant vault. He doesn't even need guards because everybody loves Pharaoh so much. Nobody would ever steal from him ever. He doesn't even need horses. He's great. Oh, really? Really? He doesn't have an army? Doesn't have any police? Doesn't have any guards guarding the vault? You don't say. I do. He's great. I love Pharaoh. Thank you, friend. Thank you. And what does that Mesopotamian pirate lord then do? He tells his friends these stories. And what part do they hear? Oh, they hear the $1 billion and no defense, no guards. And so what is intended to be a story of bragging, a story, culture to show off the power, the legitimacy of Pharaoh, turns out that when other people hear it, to be a reason to attack Egypt. And that's the Hyksos. The end of the Middle Kingdom happens because the Hyksos, Mesopotamian warrior pirates, who might have been Canaanites, probably Phoenicians, come roaring out of the desert with this super technology, the chariot, the horse-drawn chariot. Now remember, they live in the tough hood. They live in a tough neighborhood. They're from the hood. They're from Mesopotamia, where everybody is fighting everybody and everyone's murdering each other all the time, right? And so you got to be tough if you're going to survive in Mesopotamia. And so they come roaring out of the desert. And what do? They cross the Sinai. They invade Lower Egypt, the Delta region. They kill the Pharaoh. They smash. The Pharaoh gets his homeboys together. He's like, we must protect Egypt. But do any of them know how to fight? No. Do any of them know how to be in an army? No. They go out and they have their sticks and they have their spears. And they're like, we will fight you. And in come these guys and are like Godzilla, right through them. They kill the Pharaoh in battle. They end the Middle Kingdom. They loot Lower Egypt. And they begin the second intermediate period because there is no Pharaoh left. This is a giant trauma. How could this happen to us? Who are these people? How could this happen? And how do we stop it from happening? How do we get rid of the Hyksos? How do we go back to the way things were? How do we stop this from ever happening again? Remember what just happened. The richest, most peaceful place on earth just got invaded by thugs from Mesopotamia using a super technology nobody had seen before. Horses, the chariot, the longbows. They might as well have been space aliens. And this is a trauma. How do we get rid of them? How do we go back to the way things were? How do we stop these people from raping our women, killing our men, enslaving our children, taking all of our money? It's like the locusts took over in A Bug's Life. How do we stop this from happening? The answer to that question is we need a hero. We need an underdog. We need a Superman. We need a hero. We need a hero who can organize the nobility, who can beat up anybody who thinks they can kick out the Hyksos, who are losers, and then who can organize an army, can get the materials for that army, can train that army, and then kick out the Hyksos, and then create order, and then take the fight to other people so that they will never invade Egypt again. We need a hero. The Middle Kingdom is over. And what does Egypt get? It gets that hero. And that hero is Ahmose, 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 who will create the new kingdom. He's going to unify the nobles. He's going to rally the people. He's going to kick out the Hyksos. How does he do that? Well, a combination of personality, a combination of charisma, a combination of violence, because there are noble people who think, oh, I can kick out the Hyksos. I'm a hero. And he's like, no, you're not. Whack. He has to be a little bit ruthless. He can't be nice to everybody. He's got to organize all these people in this trauma. And how does he kick out the Hyksos? These guys with these super weapons? Well, what he does is copy them. He does not create an Egyptian army for the Egyptian people. What he does is create a mirror image of the Mesopotamian army that the Hyksos have. Chariots, horses, bows. Now remember, the Egyptians don't have any of this stuff. They have to import it in. They have to get it. They have to sneak it in. They have to make alliances with like Arab tribes and African tribes. They have to bring this stuff in. And the idea of the new kingdom is we will never, ever be conquered again. We're going to conquer other people. We don't get our asses kicked. We kick ass. And this starts the imperial age. Legitimacy is not based on culture. It's not based on infrastructure. It's not based on being nice and building stuff that people like. It's based on war and conquest and beating up foreigners. And nobody will attack us ever again. It is war and protection. The only bad war is the one you lose, so don't lose. This is the imperial age. So what happens? Strong warrior kings come roaring out of the desert. Amos kicks out the Hyksos. He builds this up. He unifies his nobility. He takes that money, kicks out the Hyksos. The Hyksos are eliminated from history. We don't know who they are. We don't know who they become. They're just kicked out. They're gone. They have no history after this. They're a bit player. They're traumatic. They're Yago causing this disaster. But then we kick them out and then they're never mentioned again. Later on, we get Thutmose III. Thutmose III is going to be the first one to roar out of the desert. He's going to go into Palestine, into Cana, into Phoenicia. He's going to go down the river. He's going to go up the river, He's going to go up the river into Africa and beat up Kush so they can't be attacked from the river. And he crosses the desert to make sure that no one can invade the way the Hyksos invaded. So he takes over Palestine, Cana. Ramses II, this is a couple, 100 years later or so. Ramses II, the greatest of all the kings, is everywhere, doing everything. He's fighting the Hittites 900 miles and 2 deserts away. He's fighting in Africa. He's fighting in Libya. He is everywhere doing everything. He is the Superman of the Egyptian world. Ramses II is Asmodeus of the poem, of the Breaking Bad final episode. He is everywhere, doing everything, being awesome. He is the greatest king since Hammurabi in the world. Without a doubt. There's just nobody else like him. His star, it just shines the brightest. And what does this do? Egypt becomes the protector of its allies. See, it roars out of the desert, and when it hits Cana, it says, "Are you people going to invade us?" And they go, No, you're Egypt. You're Ramses. You're awesome. He's like, that's right. But you know what? We don't want to own you. We don't want to rape you. We don't want to murder you. We just want you to tell us if bad guys are coming our way. We're your friends. In fact, when bad guys come your way, we are going to help you. We're going to kick those bad guys out because we got hurt. And nobody else should be hurt like us. Fork bad guys. And these Canaanites and these Phoenicians are like, oh, that's pretty cool. Everyone else comes and kills us and murders us and takes our women. You mean you want to be allies? And they're like, yep. Except we're not equal. I am way better than you. And they go, and the Canaanites are like, oh, yeah, you're totally the Pharaoh of Egypt. You're all way better than us. I mean, you're freaking Ramses. We're nobody. So, but we're your friends. Yay. We'll tell you if anyone bad is coming. Pharaoh's like, great. So they are protectors of allies. The Egyptian Empire is one of the weirder empires in the history of the world because they have so much money from Egypt. They have so much food from Egypt. They don't need money from anybody else. They need friends. They need allies. Basically, the United States in NATO. The United States in NATO doesn't need France and Britain and the South Koreans to pay the United States. No. What the United States wants is peace and prosperity. And so if Britain and France and Germany and South Korea and Japan, they're like, hey, we're allies. We're all in this together. The United States is like, and we're the richest, so we got your back. We got you. We're going to help you. Because what's good for you is good for us. Because we don't ever want to be invaded by commies or Nazis or anybody else or Canadians. We are your friends. And we're going to protect you. So that's the Egyptian Empire. The Egyptian Empire. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, this is a paper. This is something we should write. Because other empires are always extracting resources. The United States and Ramses' empire doesn't extract resources. It gives resources. It wants its allies to be strong because those allies are protection. Now, there are disadvantages in this system. The first is most pharaohs are not Ramses. Most pharaohs are lazy and decadent. They have a lot of money and they have hot tubs. And so if there's a problem, hey, send somebody else. So they're not a great ally at times. When you have Ramses or Tutmos, they're an awesome ally. But when you have Hupa the Fourth, they're a terrible ally because you're like, oh, Pharaoh Hupa, we're being invaded by these Mesopotamians from Babylon. Can you help us? And he's like, oh man, I'm in a hot tub with my girly girlfriends. George, you ever led an army? Oh, no. Well, good. You're going to get some experience. Go help our allies. Oh, okay, I go. Well, how good is that army going to be under George? And so under the super kings, under the strong warrior kings, things are great. But most of them aren't strong warrior kings. Hopa the Fourth is bad. Which means the enemies are not exactly afraid of war with Egypt. Ramses, freaking afraid. Ramses fights the Battle of Kadesh. The Battle of Kadesh is 800 miles away. It took him 6 months to get there, which means the Hittites did something that scared the Egyptian ally. The Egyptian ally had to send word to Ramses. That's 6 months. Then Ramses had to get his army together. That's 6 months. Then Ramses had to go cross the desert, cross into Cana, hang out with his allies. You know, he had to do some FaceTime. Go to Phoenicia, hang out with more allies, do some FaceTime. Then hit Kadesh. That's another 6 to 9 months. So it means the Hittites did something 2 years earlier. And then Ramses shows up with 30,000 troops and 5,000 chariots. And he's like, yo, you did something. And they're like, what? What do we do? What do we do? You did that thing 2 years ago. And now I'm here. Oh, poop. Like, you'd have that reaction too. Dude, if you cut somebody off on 42 while you're driving, and 2 years later he showed up with all of his homeboys, you'd poop too. You'd be like, what? Who? What? What? So, but if they're not Ramses, if they're Hopa the Fourth, and I have to go fight George, yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm not too worried about Egypt. 3, the Egyptians, like Americans, don't like foreign wars. They don't like leaving Egypt. Egypt is awesome. Mesopotamia sucks. And how do I know Mesopotamia sucks? Because Mesopotamians think it sucks. Mesopotamians will tell you in Gilgamesh, Mesopotamia sucks. There's bad kings, there's bad floods, there's bad things. You die all the time. Mesopotamia sucks. They have sucky gods. I mean, literally, they have gods who do bad things to people because they like doing bad things. Egyptians don't have that. Even Set, the god of death and like evil, is like, dude, I'm just here because you have to die sometime. Sorry. You know, it's like, oh, okay, that's fair. I mean, fair play to Set. You got to die sometime. So, but in Mesopotamia, they have gods who are like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do terrible things to you. I'm going to burn your house down. Then I'm going to kill your kids. Then when you're starving and you eat some weeds, weeds are going to be poison and you're going to have diarrhea for a week. And then I'm going to get you bit by a snake. That's what I'm going to do. And you're like, oh, what are you doing? And you're like, well, I'm a Mesopotamian evil god. Oh, and if you're a Mammon, you're like, give me your kids and sacrifice them in a blood ceremony. Because you know what I love? Dead babies. Like, what kind of gods are you? You're like, evil gods. Duh. And so the Egyptians don't like going. They'd much rather stay. They will fight to protect Egypt. They will go to Cana. And when Ramses is like, dude, we have to go to Kadesh. We're protecting Egypt to do it. If we don't fight them there, we'll have to fight them here. Well, that's what rich society said. That's what my Swedes said. My Swedish king, Charles X Gustav, said if we don't fight them in Poland, we're going to have to fight them in Stockholm. So we might as well go. And everyone said, yeah, you're right. Let's go. So every society says that. Every rich society says it's better to fight them over there than to fight them here. George W. Bush said this about Al-Qaeda. Fight them in Afghanistan, fight them in Iraq. They didn't happen to be in Iraq, but that's what he said. And it's better to fight them somewhere else than to wait for them to attack you where you are. But that doesn't mean people like going there. And the Egyptians didn't like going. So you have these disadvantages, which are fine as long as nothing bad happens. And then the baddest thing of all bad things happen, the Bronze Age collapse. Climate change caused climate to change, food to go scarce, nomads get on the move, and out of the sea, which was totally unexpected. Nobody had invaded Egypt by sea. Nobody had boats in the ancient world. Like the Phoenicians did, sure, but they were trade peoples. They were navies killing people. Out of the sea come these Greek Vikings. Dorian Vikings or something. The Philistines, like Goliath, the Philistines, come roaring out of the sea. They land in Egypt and they wreck Egypt. They wreck northern Egypt. The Egyptian New Kingdom collapses like everybody else, like all the Canaanite people, like all the Phoenician cities, which are all burned, like Babylon, which is burned 3 times. Everybody collapses in the Bronze Age collapse. It's not the Egyptians' fault. Don't be like, the New Kingdom brought it on themselves. No, don't blame the victim. Something happened that you couldn't stop from happening. Even the greatest of kings, even Ramses, would not have been able to prevent the Bronze Age collapse. He would have just been defeated in a glorious way going down fighting. But they were just completely overwhelmed. What effect does this have? This, the death of the New Kingdom with the Bronze Age collapse, is the end of independent Egypt. Egypt is never again run by Egyptians for any long length of time. First, it's the Cushites that come. The Cushites will come from Africa, down the river, conquer Egypt, and run it as an Egyptian pharaoh. They are accepted. The black African Cushite kings are accepted as the 25th, 26th dynasty. Then the Assyrians will come out of the desert from Mesopotamia. Having conquered everything else, they're like, well, what about the richest place on earth? So they come. After them, the Persians. So there's a little piece of Egypt being independent in between, about 75 years. And then the Persians come in. After the Persians, the Greeks. After the Greeks, the Romans. After the Romans, the Arabs. So after 1000 BC, there is 75 years of independence for Egypt. After that, Egypt is owned by somebody else all the time. And today, Egypt is an Arabic country, worshiping an Arabic god, writing its laws and its poems and its sayings in Arabic. It's an Arab country, not an Egyptian one anymore. And so this is the end of Egypt. A glorious end, but a sad end to the richest independent country in the ancient world. Okay. Good luck. Be safe. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you soon. Bye.